Hi, I'm Kate. I'm a manager here at the Penguin Bookshop. We're a green, LEED certified, locally owned business, and we just really love doing events like this, particularly working with RMU. It's been a great partnership over the last couple years. We're actually doing a book launch on, April 27th for Sylvia Pambukin, who's an associate professor at RMU. We invite you all to come out for that. Please feel free to check our website for more events. And thank you so much for coming out. Here's Heidi.
Thank you, Kate. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, first of all, to our Rune release party. This is the first time anybody gets to get a hold of the newly released Rune. We've been working on it. A select few of us have been working on it throughout the entire semester. We've had people from all over the greater Pittsburgh area submit poems and artwork, and we chose the best of the best and published them in our Rune. So we have a few people to thank tonight. So first of all, John, Jay, Heather, and Scott, wherever all of you are, our advisors for Rune, for helping us out with everything. This is a student organization. But we are led by some of the greater faculty we have at Robert Morris. Some other people we'd like to thank are our sponsors. So we have J.T. Carson, Carrie Monyo, Ray Zapparoni, who's over here on the video camera, Dr. Barbara Levine, Dr. A.J. Grant, Michael DeLauro, Marianne Eichhorn, and the Penguin Bookstore here in Swickley for letting us host our Rune release party here. And a few of the things we'll be doing tonight is we're going to have some of the authors that were published come up here and read us their poetry. And then we'll have some of the artists who are published throughout the Rune. They'll come up here and you'll be able to get to look at who they are and associate them with a picture. We have a featured poet tonight, Joseph Bethanti. No, not you? Oh, is he here yet? He's not here yet, but he is our featured. Ah, there he is. So he is our featured poet tonight. And after that, we're going to present an award, and then we will have light refreshments in the back afterwards. Another person that we need to thank for everything they've done is Dr. France. She's the head of the communication department, and together this is a collaborative thing between the English department and the communication department. So if we want to get started, Age will be our host for tonight.
Well, as you could tell, Heidi called me Age, but in the program, I'm Adriana Carbonera, so reference. But as you know, I'm going to be presenting all the poets tonight and the photographers tonight. And first, we're going to start with our featured poet, Joseph Bethanti.
John, how long should I read?
10 minutes. Also, if you guys could turn your cell phones off, like on silent or something.
John. By the way, if as you're listening you're inspired with a commercial urge, Joseph has books right there to buy.
So John, like 3 or 4 poems and then get out of here? I mean, tell me. Okay, great. That'll be great. Hey everybody. It's nice to see you. And I don't know what to say bursting in here like this on you. I was stuck on the Swickley Bridge and then I was just browsing everywhere for a place to park. But so it's good to be here. Since I'm in Pittsburgh, I'll read Pittsburgh poems. The first one I'll read is a poem called Wheeling. Are most people here from Pittsburgh? I guess you are. Yes? No? Growing up, growing up here in Pittsburgh, when I was in college, I went to Pitt. I went to Central Catholic. I grew up in East Liberty and went to Saints Peter and Paul, and then went to Sacred Heart, and just kind of progressed up Fifth Avenue. The drinking age here was 21, but the drinking age in West Virginia was 18. So it was probably a universal habit for people to cross the line to drink legally. So this is just a poem called Wheeling, and I don't think you have to really know anything about it, because I think the poem will explain it. Driving a girl whose father loathed me, son of an Italian who labored on the open hearth, I crossed in a borrowed green Comet the PA line into Wheeling. 18 was legal in West Virginia, Marlboros and 3-2 beer at the hilltop on a street with whorehouses and a Jesuit college. She was 16, a minor, the true minor secreted in black sulphurous pockets, whispering beneath the tavern floor we sat upon. The jukebox was loud and country. It was easy to ignore the charge being laced under us. My girl was drunk and singing along Loretta Lynn, Tammy Wynette, though she didn't know the words, the way folks mouth like speaking in tongues when the spirit lays hold of them. A smudge on her cheek, second-hand coat, her blonde hair shone white in that light aged into a coal miner's wife or a steel worker's, like my mother. When the 4 to 12 shift from Wheeling, Pittsburgh dragged in, I smelled asbestos and baked ore, the vaporous green sizzle of my father's work fatigues. I wanted to tell her all about her father. I'd rip him to pieces, that bastard. My dad was a brave man. He climbed boom cranes with nothing but a span of leather fastening him above the smokestacks, streaming 12 stories of fire into the firmament. But I had no vocabulary to render his mythic toil. I knew more about her dad, his suits and office in downtown Pittsburgh, his perfect diction in college education. We hung around till last call, then kissed against the fender until the lot emptied and the hilltop's neon shingle sputtered out. The Comet wouldn't start. I turned it over and over until I killed the battery, till I couldn't get a peep out of the horn or the lights to flicker. The mighty Ohio beat by, whelped in Pittsburgh. It loops north in defiance of gravity, abruptly slices west, southering into the fang of northern West Virginia, that impales the border of Ohio and Pennsylvania like the long, jagged neck of a busted bottle. That's where we stood clinging to each other, stranded along the omniscient river, where I still like to think of us before those miners like escaped purgatorians burst black and smoldering through the bottom of our lives, and she started to cry, anticipating her father's patrician wrath. I thought of who I could call, knowing there was only one man on earth who would rise out of his exhausted sleep at the sound of my voice, like Lazarus in Come Running. And of course, that guy was my dad. And so I'll follow up on that. Hey, it's nice to see you all. I'll follow up on that and read a poem called Knocked, which is also about my dad, who was a steel worker. He worked at Edgar Thompson in Braddock. And the story behind this poem is that my dad was just not a kind of guy who ever talked about what he did at work. He really never talked about himself. He was really, really a humble, wonderful dad. And I never knew a thing about where he worked or saw where he worked until I dropped him off one morning so I could keep our car to go to the after-prom picnic. And that's the first time that I saw his where he worked. This is called Knocked, kind of like knocked, although there's knock on a door. But when my dad would say a fellow had something knocked, that meant that he kind of had it made. I was 17 before I saw Edgar Thompson, the steel mill where my father had worked since he was 17. And only then, because I needed his car for the senior after-prom picnic, the theme was Color My World. Sleepless, having danced all night, a furnace of cheap champagne, and still in my tuxedo, I dropped him off at 7 a.m. in Braddock, named for a Revolutionary War general. 3 bars in every block, street lights turned on in the afternoon so the school kids could see their ways home through the ore dust. The mill was blue and corrugated, rising in shaft after shaft of smoke that saw-toothed into gray sky. I never saw its top. The men in the boom crane cabs wore hard hats and drank coffee. They had it knocked, my father said, but not him. He had to climb the backs of those monsters. When I was little and insisted I wanted to be like him, and work in the mill, he'd snap, "No, you're not. You're going to college." In a few months, I really would be going to college. Working in a steel mill was the last thing I wanted to do. My father eased out of the car, handed me a 20, told me to be careful, pinned on his millwright's badge, and filed into the smoke with the others. I turned up the radio, dropped the engine into low for torque, and floored it, sure that in one night I had had more fun, more love, more everything than he had had in his life, and I wanted to get back to it as fast as I could. I wanted to congratulate Robert Morris and Rune, too. What a wonderful occasion. I'm really glad to be part of it, and thank you so much, John. And congratulations to all the student poets. That's really wonderful. And certainly to John Lawson, because I know he works real hard on behalf of the humanities at Robert Morris. And I'll tell you just a really quick story about student publications. I think the very first thing I ever published, I was a freshman. My first year of college, I went to California, University of Pennsylvania, which was California State College then. And they had a little literary magazine called Pegasus. So I sent in a poem and it was published, but I intelligently didn't sign my name to it. It was just an anonymous. Although I was really proud that I got it in. And that night in the dorm, everyone had a copy of the magazine because it was a free magazine. So we were sitting around the room, talking, and people were reading different poems. And somebody read my poem, and then they all really started making fun of the poem, and so I did too, of course, because I hadn't read it. So that was pretty funny. Parody's important, so I just read a poem about my dad, so I'll read one about my mother. My mother and father. It's from a photograph, and all of you folks who write poems know how evocative especially old photographs are for writing poems, and new photographs, any kind of photographs, because there's so much that the photograph says but doesn't say, and you can imagine the whole narrative for yourself. This comes from old black and white photograph from my mom and dad's wedding all the way back in '47. Some of you might remember those old Kodak little booklets with the spiral things, and you'd turn them over. Anyhow, the photograph shows my mother and father coming down the steps of the church, and they're headed towards... They're headed towards this automobile to get into it. And you can't quite see it when you look at them, but if you look at the reflection of them in the automobile window, the reflection of them, not them, my father has a cigarette in his hand. So it's almost as if as soon as they were pronounced man and wife, my dad, lit a cigarette. It's almost like he's coming out of church with a cigarette. And that was just kind of the prompting image for the photograph, for the poem, but I wanted to mention it because it might be confusing later. It's called From the Photograph of the Church Steps, September 3rd, 1947. It's Our Lady of the Help of Christians on Meadow Street in East Liberty, which we called Help a Christian. My sister and I were baptized there, and then lots of people in the family were married there. My mother on her wedding day clutches a gardenia bouquet. The heady flowers have her ill, but she refuses to complain. It's her jaw, however, set to one side, the left eye slightly closed, that give her away. She's wisecracking out of the corner of her mouth to the groom, my father, who has her other hand locked in his. He smiles the way he smiles when busy, understanding perfectly there's no such thing as perfection. Beautiful Isabel, the maid of honor, holds my mother's train above Meadow Street. Next to her stands my mother's mother, wearing a hat with flowers. It is canon that women in church cover their heads, and all of them favor flowery, wide brims afloat above their long hair. Dreadfully handsome. The best man is Silvio Vento. His bow tie is 3 clicks off keel, one hand inside his tuxedo. My mother despises him. An operator, a gavone. Man of great charm, he will show up out of nowhere 21 years later on the day of my sister's graduation. And because my dad is pulling shifts at the mill, drive her to the baccalaureate mass, then disappear again to his hideout in Florida. Filling the church steps, trailing the newly wedded or the families mingling in a hail of rice, newsreel faces unrecognizable in the faded iconography of this 45-year-old snapshot, like Bruegel. It becomes dizzying, too much. I know so little. Where is the dress, the boutonniere? There are hardly any pictures. My parents' modesty is unusual, but in the arrangement of things, something is already out of control. In the far left of the photograph is a man, his back to the camera. He rushes madly back into Our Lady's. At the curb hulks the honeymoon sedan, in sun silvered like a mirror. The windshield is halved by a blade length of chrome. Caught in the glass by some quirk of reflection, or the hands of the bride and groom clasped in their bargain, good luck, long life. And I see now, only now, for the first time in the image of their interlocking hands, that knowing the future will not help them, that my father is holding a cigarette burnt down to his knuckles, that he and my mother are about to catch fire. I want to read, maybe I'll read 2 more, maybe 3. But let me get out of here and get the Rune folks up here. This poem is a baseball poem. I learned to play baseball in Pittsburgh and grew up here and played a lot of baseball. And this poem is for Joshua Joseph Reese, who will be 7 years old on Saturday and is my great nephew. In all ways is he great. Anyhow, it's called Washing Her Ruined Boy, and it's really told from a woman's point of view, who is giving a bath to her little boy, like a 7 or 8 year old, who has come home from losing his Little League game and is just beside himself. That he would not cry this way in front of his father is no measure of greater love. He simply apportions me what is mine. As I run his bath, I watch him through the mirror, Yanks pipe gravely across his chest in maroon block as he undresses. He's smooth and pretty as his sister, but unlike her, he covets fame's witness. I can hardly lift him over the lip of the tub where his regatta lists, dry-docked and forgotten. Tonight he does not buck my cleansing hand, but leans into it, crying as I bathe him, still not sure that what he's assailed by is loss, for what is there to lose in 7 years? Already he's bent on making this morning his life. Each night he prays to be a champion. I yearn to tell him he is right to despair as I tow and wrap him languid, weeping across my knees, wondering if tonight he'll cry out in sleep as he kicks that same elusive grounder through his dreams, the one he's told me over and over, incredulous that something bad could happen, that had all the world to choose, yet chose the earth he stood on to pluck off and ruin him. And then 2 more. this next one's for my sister Marie Reese, who is here, right here in front of me, to my left. In the name of the poem is called "The Strike Baby," and it's about my sister's birth, but I substitute myself for her, only because I couldn't figure out a crafty way, and by craft I mean the craft of writing. It sounded clunky to say my sister each time, so I used myself, but it's really about my sister. And again, I know there are a lot of young poets. This is sort of called a found poem, because my mother told me this on the phone one night, and I wrote it down. I mean, to the syllable, the way she told me. And then I wrote the poem, but she wrote the poem. So it's called "The Strike Baby," and it's dedicated for my mother and father and Marie. And it's pretty much a true story coming out of the mouth of my mother. $11 a week, unemployment, and I wasn't getting pregnant. When I did, your father went on strike. We were renting from Nick and Ida Santilli. They said, forget about the rent until the baby comes. You were due. Your father was on strike. Then winter came, and my God, the snow, the 1950 snow. Everybody called it the big snow. I baked bread. We bought produce from the huckster. Daddy painted Abe and Lena Vento's house. They bought us a crib, so we asked them to be godparents. The days Daddy got paid, he brought home a 20-cent pie. It cost $110 to have a baby. 9 months care and delivery, calcium and vitamin pills. 2 days after you were born, the strike ended. So my dad was on strike for the entirety of my mother's pregnancy with my sister, and then two days after she was born, he went back to work. Okay, I'll read one more poem. I have to dip into the bag here, though, I think. Gosh, don't tell me. Okay, it's not there. I wanted to read kind of a love poem for my wife that is in another book, but I could recite a love poem for it. But since the book, I thought it was there. Maybe somebody stole it, you know. But I can find a love poem in here, and this is for my dear, lovely wife. I mean, all poems are love poems, really. You know, I think. It's not that one. I saw there was a nun in there, so that wouldn't be. That would not be a love poem at all. Oh shucks. Okay, I'll read it. I'll read this poem. It's really about my mother. But my wife is not my mother, and you should never marry your mother for a million reasons. But they were two of the very, very, very significant women who have been in my life and have taught me a lot. So I'll read this. It's called "Mendicant on a Bridge," and there's a very quick, short, funny story about this. This poem was published in a magazine a number of years ago, and it won a prize, kind of a really nice prize. So I sent it to my mom and my dad, which I was never in the habit of. I didn't really send them everything I wrote or published until it came out in the book. And so my mother, but because it was about her and it won a prize, I wanted her to see it. And the first thing she said, because it's called "Mendicant on a Bridge," a word we don't use too often, mendicant. She looked it up, obviously, in the dictionary and said, "You called me a beggar," because that's one of the. But I meant it more as, of course, a kind of a religious seeker. Anyhow, this is for my wife, and this is for my mother, and for all wives and mothers and women, especially since it feels like to me that women have really been under siege lately on the political arena. So. God bless the women. Let me start again. From desperate reaches above the Atlantic, I send my mother letters detailing the etymology of barnacle and sea cucumber, subtle notes of piers and bridges. She reads these at kitchen table in housecoat and slippers, drinking tea like a vexed China woman, attempting to pinpoint the digressions of my cursive hand. She wonders why I cannot walk a straight line. I describe unfamiliar terrain. She twirls the globe to find me never there. The world turns me sadly over like a boy on a spit. At day's end, she's tired and elusive. Care has worn her like an old coat. On a whim, she drops to hands and knees, drags a rag skeptically across the tile floor. Have I punished her too long with my ceaseless hunger, ignoring this kitchen demon for a phantom woman? My letters are elegies to a girl leaning cockily on the fender of a two-tone roadster with a rumble seat, parked on the Hoover Street Bridge, 1937. She wears a look I suspect I've seen but never recognized. I alone possess this portrait of her secret girlhood, my secret mother, long-haired, lovely, not so practical, and as I am now, mendicant on a bridge. Here there is a breaking of destiny. We travel together in these letters to the Pacific, the Aegean, any sea, a new conception, a more harrowing gestation. Tell them not to search the land for me, mother. I'm going to long-haired girls of 1937, a bridge still standing, uncrashed into the hollow. I'll bleed the stone womb for water. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Joseph Bethanti. And what we're going to do now is we're going to be going through the list of presenters that you have in your program. And what we're going to ask the poets or photographers to do is to read their poem and then talk about it or talk about their photography. So whichever one it is. And to start off, we're going to have Joanne Martin come up, and you can find her poem 80 Loden Lane on page 24.
Hello. I am 8. Mr. Butine is my 3rd grade teacher, and each day starts by checking to see if the hair on his face has changed. Mrs. Shoemaker, the 4th grade teacher, is pregnant. Every day she comes in with her stomach growing, and I feel kind of embarrassed for her. We know this means she's had sex. My sister and I ride the bus to school with the Mercy Girls. They are high school students being shipped across town to private school. They get off after us. Stacy, the blonde, is the ringleader. She likes to sit in the last seat and put on lipstick for 20 minutes. Scotty and I like to annoy her by sitting there first. Scotty is my friend, I guess, but he is whiny. All he talks about is how the Titanic sank. It was because a man challenged God. That, and they hit a big ice cube. Plus, he burns ants with his magnifying glass. This is better than the boys in my apartment complex, who throw the frogs against the wall. I wish I knew how to save them. The man across the parking lot plays loud music. He watches the boys but doesn't stop them. Last night I had a crazy dream about a chick in a black bikini. She looked so good she couldn't be real. I knew she had to be a magic genie. Mom doesn't like me to sing his songs, but she won't explain them either. All my music education comes from my neighbors. I know when to hold them and when to fold them because of Kenny Rogers and Mrs. Ames. I think my neighbors are pretty good, except for the man who ordered a case of turtles for the school fundraiser, then forgot to pay for them. I even like the college guy who built the snow woman with breasts, holding a beer bottle between them. The nipples were fascinating, the beer shockingly forbidden. I thought it was clever, but Mom asked Dad if we could go ahead and buy the house now. So I guess all I would say about this poem is that 80 Loden Lane is the address of the apartment complex we lived in when I was in 3rd and 4th grade. My mom was in graduate school. And it's essentially a true story. Everything in this actually happened. A couple details have been changed just to make the poem work. And the fun part of this poem, just because my partner in crime is here, is last summer a group of us went camping and wrote poems for a weekend, and I wrote this poem in the midst of that, which was a great deal of fun. So, thanks.
Thank you, Joanne. Up next, we have Roberta Hatcher. You can find her poem, I'm Always Losing Things, on page 5.
Hello. Before I read, I just want to thank the editorial committee of Rune. This is a beautiful magazine. It's so nice to have it, and I'm delighted to be here and to be in it. So, I'm always losing things. Car keys, car, love letters, lover, the train of thought, the thread. As if something about living makes my palms sweat, my mind go blank, allowing objects to slip away from me. I used to say, it's a Zen thing, a sign from the universe to detach from the material world. But carelessness lies far from mindlessness, its opposite. The watch I lost was a Christmas gift, whose absence on my wrist was noticed, and like a long hesitation before speaking, meaning was attached. Just last week, I locked myself out again, the keys forgotten inside. Each time, it costs a little bit more to try to get back in. Thank you. This is a poem that's dedicated to my sister, who once in a bookstore, not unlike this one, found a book and said, "This is perfect for you." The title was, "It's Hard to Make a Difference When You Can't Find Your Keys." As it turned out, the watch, the Christmas gift, was from that same sister. So when I first was writing this poem, it started out as a very funny, kind of jokey thing. I imagined all my lost objects somewhere in the world in a lost and found, and it kind of went off. And then I locked myself out again, and it kind of just took it to a little bit deeper place. And it was kind of a lesson about the usefulness and the limits of cleverness in poetry. So, thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Up next is me. So I'll just stay up here and talk. You can find mine on page 6, and it's The Whispering is where it all starts. I'll explain it when I'm done. It's easier that way. Mumbling, just ignore them, leave them be. Don't do anything. You know you want to. It's so easy. Keep walking, get away. As if you could ever get away. I'm here to stay. Cross the street, almost home. Locks and chains, nearly there. They can't stop you. You can't fight it. Stop talking. There's my door. Take a breath. Look to your left. Perfection. Yours for the taking. No, I won't. Not again. Take a look at your hand. Trembling yet again. Shake it. Loosen it. The pain soon begins. You know how to fix it. How to fix that aching itch. The knife's in my hand. Now it's time to begin. Please, please tell me all I did was dream. Go to the bathroom. Look in the mirror. Dried flaking blood coats the sink, hitting the floor hard, thumping. Why can't I stop? Why can't I effing stop? Because you know you don't want to. You love it too much. Scrambling, I have to find it, find the knife. To do this again? Lift my sleeve, see the scars. So many lives live forever on my arm. All right, so thank you. I'm more nervous reading my own poem than talking in front of you for other people, so. But that poem was actually from a prompt that we had to do in a creative writing class, and it was be a murderer and make the reader sympathize with you. Did it work? I'm assuming by your laughter that it assumes yes. All right, but thank you. All right, let me find the program. Okay. All right, and up next, we have Angelique Arenas with Things I Could Never Tell My 6th Grade Teacher. You can find it on page 1.
Okay. Things I could never tell my 6th grade teacher. I hated your class. I hated the way you never started on time. I hated the meaningless lessons you never taught. Math and science were never my forte. I played sick on the days I had classes with you. I told my mom I hated you. I know you favored the boys. They were always first for everything. I saw you smoking in your car. Didn't anyone ever tell you that 1 pack of ciggies kills 8 hours of your life? I cheated on a homework assignment. I tried to switch out of your class. My mother wouldn't let me. I purposely spoke up when you told the class to quiet down. I told the principal I hated you. I told my favorite teacher, Mr. Greitzer, I hated you. I think he hated you too. When I had your class, I felt like the clock was never moving. I thought you were as lame as a duck. Not the metaphorical lame duck, but a real duck that was actually lame. I tried to leave your class during lunch once. I couldn't wait for 7th grade. I hated your class. Thank you. Thank you. This poem was actually inspired in our creative writing class that Adriana and Michael and I have together. The prompt was things I could never tell, and then you got to fill in the blank. And I know everyone's experienced a professor or teacher they really didn't like that might have made their class or whole entire year awful. And mine was my 6th grade teacher. She was actually my neighbor too, but thank you.
Oh, the fun times in creative writing class. Thank you, Angelique. All right, up next, we have Heidi Hickel. Hickel. I always say that wrong. Hickel? Okay, see, I said it right. Hers is actually a photo. It's on the back inside. She'll tell you exactly which one on top. I don't have it in front of me. But it's the House of Winter.
It's the one on top. So ready? Everybody look at it. Ooh, ah. Oh, we also have a slideshow playing up here, and it's up right now. Some of you can see it, some of you may not be able to. You have to glance at it as we mingle later. It's actually a picture that I took whenever I drug my brother's girlfriend on a 5-mile hike with me, and we brought the camera, and it was snowing out, so it was really quite a hike that day. And it was actually a picture of my neighbor's field. Like, they have their new house up on the hill, and it's an old house that sits at the bottom of their farm. So, thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. All right, up next, we have Michael Battisti. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. With Marley on page 30.
All right, hello. This poem is about my dog, and she really loves attention, so I'm sure she'd be really happy that I'm talking about her right now to all of you. Okay. Sometimes my dog can be a real asshole, like last summer when she killed that baby mole. She parades around the house with her black lips and nose, and her ears that fold down like little Doritos. When she's bored, she likes to poop on rugs, the watery kind, and of course the occasional stealth hump from behind. I can hear her tiny feet clicking on the floor all night, like she's planning her next move, or which one of us to bite. That bitch is constantly barking as if she's singing an endless cry, but really she's speaking the devil language to my mom and I. She is really annoying, but she smells like popcorn when she sleeps, and she let us paint her nails once with some polish from the Beebs. But the one thing that keeps me from going for the kill, she gets more excited to see my face than I know any human ever will. I mean, I'm sure we all have someone, whether it's an animal or an actual human, that does all these terrible things and we hate them, but then they do one little thing that makes, you forget all about that. So I guess that's what it was about. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And also, when you guys are up in the mic, if you could talk nice and close to the mic so that everyone can hear you. All right, but up next, we have Megan Johnson. And you can find hers actually on the front and the back cover on the outside. So come on up, Megan.
Okay, so I did the cover and the back cover, the front and the back cover. Thank you. The back cover has my photo on it. I actually was at a neighbor's house the day I took it, and it was actually in a bird bath. There was a leaf in there with these water droplets on it. I thought, oh, that's really cool, and it's so random. So I took a picture of it. And as for the inspiration for the cover, I just thought of like ink blots on a piece of paper with lettering. That's it.
Thank you, Megan. All right, up next, we have Jay Carson. Oh, yes, you are next. With SAT questions, which you can find on page 23.
Thank you, and my thanks to the editorial board who did such great work in putting this together. They really did a wonderful job. I'm going to reverse this a little and talk a little bit about the poem first. It occurred to me that somebody was checking with me about some gardening issues and some bamboo that apparently infests all over the place in western Pennsylvania. I didn't know anything about that, and I couldn't figure out why that was such a problem. And then I started thinking about why that happened, and then I got into how we're always asking students questions. We have so many questions for students, and some of them are so dumb, that seems to me. So that was the start of the poem. SAT question. Going up the Wrangling Road, I see the infestation of bamboo that threatens all the other vegetation. This is serious, my gardening friend tells me. A. I suggest a herd of pandas. Set them loose at the top of the road near the nice duplexes that could house pandas, and let them eat all the way down to the ice cream store for an arranged reward slake. Bamboo looks kind of dry. B. No, my friend tells me definitely, for 2 reasons. It's not the kind of bamboo they like, and there aren't enough pandas in captivity to form such a herd. Answer the following questions. 1. Ignoring the ice cream and the gardener's attitude, does it matter if either A or B are true? Why or why not? 2. Why does China have all the pandas?
Thank you, Dr. Carson. All right, up next, we have Brett Karb. You can find his photo on the inside on the top right. It's the one with the sunglasses.
It's in the middle, like if you just go to the middle. The top right. I took it at a, I think it's next. Maybe. I took it at a Pitt Notre Dame game. The guy next to me, I really couldn't see the field. And I looked over at my girlfriend, and I literally could see the entire field in the reflection. So I was like, that'd be pretty cool. And I took a picture like 2 years ago of my friend's eye with PNC Park reflecting in her eye. So I thought it'd be cool to do sunglasses too. So yeah, woo.
Thank you, Brett. All right, up next we have Samantha Wallace with her poem, The Following is a Journal Entry. You can find it on page 2.
Hi, everyone. I want to say thank you also to the editorial board and everyone that put this together. I've been a writer my whole life. I've always written for pleasure, but I've never had anything published. So seeing my name in print is absolutely astonishing to me. So I'll read my poem first, and then I will talk a little bit about it. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay. March 2nd, 2011, 2:36 p.m. I want everything to slow down. When I walk, it's at a hurried pace. When I drive, I find myself straining forward in the seat like I can will the car to go faster. Everything is too loud. Colors are too bright. Things move too quickly. I hold my breath, and then I have to breathe quickly and unevenly to get it back to normal. Even as I'm falling asleep at night, I can feel my heartbeat in my ears like hummingbird wings. I feel finely strung, too finely. If you stood next to me, you'd feel a steady hum, like the sound that electricity makes as it races through power lines, or like a guitar string that's been tightened almost, but not quite, to the breaking point and then plucked. I want to scream, but to whom? How would they hear me? It's enough to drive you mad. But I'm not like you. I'm not like anyone. I'm not like anyone, and I don't know why, and I want to know why. I don't want to burn like this all the time. I want to throw the brakes on the speeding train and then jump off. Let it crash. I want to walk away from it. I want to walk away and into the woods, to walk until I find a river, to lie down beside it and close my eyes. I want to breathe deeply until everything within me has slowed almost to the point of utter stillness. And even when I finally let the sound of the river carry me away for good, I want to stay there forever, until my breath leaves me, until my body turns to dust. Thank you. There is no mystery to the title of this poem. This actually is a journal entry. This is something that I wrote. I maintain a blog online. It's less effort than actually writing in a journal every day like I used to. It's a little easier to type. So this is an actual journal entry that I just pulled from my blog, sort of rearranged it into more of a poetry form. I went through a really dark period in my life where this was how I felt every single day, and it was awful. And I pulled myself up out of that, but I like to remind myself that I went through it. It's a good learning experience. So I wanted to submit that and hope that if anybody else has ever or will ever feel that way, they can read this and know that they're not alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. All right, last but not least is Judith Robinson. You can find her poem Roses on page 10.
Hello, everybody. Hi. I'm so happy to be here, and I want to compliment you on this beautiful work of art. And I want to compliment all the other readers and talk about, for 1 minute, how nice it is to be among kindred spirits, good poets, and wonderful photographers. So it's a pleasure to be here. I thank you. This is called Roses. It's on page 10. The simple rose, born into radiance, never hides nor eludes her admirers. Not lulled by thorns' protection, she doesn't even try. Dazzling, disarming, she bursts forth in briefest beauty, petals blushing, fuchsia pink, carmine blood. Rita Rose flashes across dreamscapes, supple in glitter, real enough for old men lost, long gone from hope, for young men hot, far gone from good intent. She undulates in reddest silk, parts carmine lips, flutters violet lids, bends deeply into the camera, rewards every bit of love she can. Thank you. The poem is just about roses, beautiful human ones and the flower kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. And as you can see on the program, up next, I'm going to welcome Dr. Jay Carson back up to present the J. Stanton Carson Award.
Don't go too far. The Carson Award is awarded annually to a Robert Morris student who is an excellent writer. Awardees are chosen by the Robert Morris English Department for their ability to write in poetic and transactional genres, especially poetry and nonfiction. Special consideration will be given to those candidates who have been published in Rune, the RMU literary magazine. This year, the Carson Award goes to Adriana Carbonera. Adriana is a woman of many strengths. As you heard tonight, notice it was transactional and poetic genres, which I think you sort of crossed a little bit there. I thought that was great. Adrienne is a woman of many strengths, a special strength. She possesses her commitment to finishing fine work, such as this journal. She demonstrated this commitment through activity on campus. She's active in a number of organizations, but I was particularly impressed by her willingness to say yes to all the important work at Rune. She's also found time to write what I think is one of the most powerful pieces in our mag. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I don't have a speech, so I'm not going to make one, but but I am going to welcome Trisha Brandt up, and she's going to be doing the concluding thank yous. Yay, Trisha.
Thank you. I'm Trisha Brandt. I am the marketing director for Rune, and I would like to give a round of applause to all the poets and photographers that are here tonight for the wonderful job. I would also like to thank Dr. Pinson's humanities class for attending tonight. It's awesome, you guys. Thank you. I would like to thank everyone for attending our 5th annual Rune release party. I would like to take a moment to personally thank some of the many volunteers that made this publication possible. When I say your name, if you could please stand so we can all acknowledge your hard work, that would be wonderful. First, I would like to thank the student and faculty members that aided in the creation of the Rune. Publication director Heidi Hickel, if you'd like to step out. Where'd she go? There she is from the back. Design and layout was by Shelby Sargent, I apologize. Our graphics editor is Megan Johnson. Our associate editors are Adriana Carbonera, Age, Casey Poindexter, who wasn't able to be here tonight, and Erica. Can't pronounce her last name, I apologize. I would also like to thank our faculty advisors, Dr. Jay Carson, Dr. John Lawson. Oh, somewhere, there we go. Dr. Heather Pinson. And Dr. Scott Wyatt. On behalf of the Rune, we would also like to thank many others that aided in the funding, printing, and advertising of the Rune. And again, please stand or remain standing. Dr. J.T. Carson, Senior Vice President for Institutional Advancement. Carrie A. Mignot, if you would like to stand. She's our student media, and she's our new media advisor. Raymond Zapparoni, who's our videographer. Dr. Barbara Levine, who is the Dean of School of our Communication Information Systems. And these people will not be able to be here tonight, but I would like to take a moment to thank them anyway. Dr. A.J. Grant, who's our Department Head of English and Communication Skills. So we can give him a round of applause anyway. Michael DeLaro, who is the Director of Academic Media Services. Mary Ann Eichhorn, and the Penguin Bookshop itself for providing us with this lovely space to hold this tonight. Again, I would just like to thank all of you for joining us this evening and taking part in our talented writers and photographers. The Rune wishes to continue publishing more creative minds, and if you would like to contribute in any way, monetary donations are great. You can also you can find the address on the very last page of your Rune if you would ever like to donate to help us keep creative minds flowing. So thank you for joining us, and please have some light refreshments in the back.